Everyone, Mizzo here. This is going to be a video that's going to lay out the two big assignments for the class that we're starting to embark on. I'm going to refer to them as the Dear Mizzo project, which has two parts, and the Personal Relationship project, which has two main pieces and then a presentation piece, so three-ish parts. So first I'm going to talk about the Dear Mizzo project. The idea behind these projects in general is that we're looking at and examining interpersonal communication and specifically relationships. And you've got one project that lets you do so from a distance, right? So you're tackling an issue that is outside of you. You're looking at through research. Whereas the personal relationship project allows you to really connect and invest in your personal relationships, and specifically yourself, that self-reflection piece. So the Dear Mizzo project, go pause the video or let it keep playing while you open another tab and open the description, especially if you haven't read it yet. And it's under assignments, and the description is attached to the first part. So the first part is basically like a Dear Abby letter. If you've never read a Dear Abby letter, go Google that. As Dane Cook says, Google that shit. The idea behind it is that it's like an anonymous newspaper write-in, right? So, and people would write in to these advice columnists for advice with their personal issues. And so you're going to pretend that I'm the advice columnist and you're going to write me a Dear Mizzo letter. And the idea is to write about something either in your personal life that is happening to you or something that you're seeing, right? So maybe you have a cousin who's in a specific type of relationship and you're curious about that situation, or you have an interpersonal issue that you've noticed with one of your friends, right? And I'm it's basically an inquiry, right? Like, what should I do? A situation or an issue that you want sort of a guidance or an answer to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them in and I'm going to swap them. And so you will get one back that isn't yours. And then you will write an answer. That's part 2. And so, again, the description is going to lay out what that paper, that part 2 has in it. You're going to be combining class concepts with what the interpersonal research says. And then also I'm curious for you to look to pop culture to see, what are the messages that we get for how to handle situations like this? And do those match the research, or what is the, effectiveness of those? Or are we being misled? Because I think a lot of times popular culture gives us advice or, reactions to interpersonal relationships that doesn't always actually make sense to our personhood. And so I'm curious to see how that lines up. And hopefully you are too, right? So that has two parts. Does that, of this side, right? That has two parts, right? Does that make sense? So you're going to write that first bit, and it doesn't have to be super long, right? It's a really good paragraph or two, enough to give enough detail and context, because remember, they're going to be getting them anonymously. So they won't know who it is. They won't be able to ask follow-up questions. You want enough information that they can write a really good paper response, and then I'll be able to make sure you get the responses, right, so that you can see what someone else wrote for your thing. You want to turn that first piece in, because even though it isn't a big deal, and isn't can you see my text messages coming up? My student texting me. I'm so excited. I'm saying something smart to you, which is, you need to turn that first part in, because if you don't turn the first part in, I can't give you one, right? Like, you got to give one to get one. So if you don't turn the first part in, you're sort of SOL for the second part, okay? And it's worth a decent amount of points, so turn it in. The second project is the personal relationship project, and how I'm conceptualizing this is, instead of doing something with a bit of a distance, you're still using research and, to sort of look into this, but you get to choose the personal relationship. So let's say I am really interested and fascinated with the relationship with my mother. And so that's the relationship I'm going to choose. So again, go open a tab, pull up the description. You'll see that so there's sort of four components, right? So the first part is the idea that you want them to do. Let me back up. Before I get to the components, here's the idea behind it. You want to somehow get an idea of their perception of the relationship. You want to personally reflect on your idea of the relationship. And then you want to do the research to see what the research says about those types of relationships, right? And so you want to create some sort of activity, whether that's a survey or you want to interview them or, do an something to get an idea of what they feel about you, right? And then you're going to examine that with your sort of own personal reflection of how you feel about the relationship. And then the fourth part is weaving in class concepts. So you'll have class concepts in there with those two pieces. And then, of course, the research on those types of relationships. So if I was doing my mother, right, I would make up some activity. I would probably interview her, right? And so I'd have an interview with my mom that would give me some feedback in response to how she feels about our relationship. I would then do a bunch of research about mother-daughter relationships and see where our relationship is like the research and where it's different. And then I would apply class concepts within those things. And then I would probably end with my sort of personal reflection and how the project has impacted how I view the relationship. Yeah, and so the idea behind that is you're going to want to write a plan, and those plans are due April 4th. And the description lays out what all is in the plan, but basically it's to get you thinking about the details of this project so that you don't put it off and do it half-ass at the end. And then I want some way to present these. I'll probably give you guidelines to make a video, and then I'll post those so people can watch them, because I really want some dissemination here so that we can learn from each other's projects. And then final papers are due May 6th. I know that that's not our typical due date, but that gives you some extra time, and then I can grade them over the weekend and finals week. So those are the two big assignments. Finally, next week we will be having our first celebration of knowledge. You might call this a test. I wouldn't call it a test because you get to use your book and notes and resources, and it's more a point where I can assess if you're taking in the material. So I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to apply them, right? That's the idea. And I will probably have that posted, I'm hoping around Sunday evening, maybe Monday at the latest, but then you'll have, several days to complete it. I'm thinking till that next Sunday. And you'll want to do it all in one shot, but it shouldn't be too taxing. I really hate the stereotype that tests are awful and we should be scared of them and teachers really want to make our lives horrible. I don't want to make your life horrible. I have no desire to make your life horrible. I do need multiple different ways to assess whether you're taking in the material. So if you're a little behind on the reading and whatnot and the video watching, maybe take the next couple of days to catch up. So go read the descriptions. Email me if you have any questions, and I hope life is grand. Have a beautiful day.